What's good? What's good? What's good, family? What's good? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the greatest podcast you've ever heard in your life. I know. Listen, this is the Black and the Bold Show. We are back at it again. What's good? What's good? What's good, family? Welcome to the greatest podcast on your social media. It is that time again for the Black and the Bold podcast. Here you will hear some thought-provoking, gut-wrenching, and sometimes even tear-jerking content that you just can't get enough of. That's why you came back, Bo. Listen, I'm the Bold. We're going to get this thing started right. What's going on, my brother Black? How you doing?
What's going on, bro? What's going on? What's going on, Sister Suzette? We got the Black and the Bold with the special guest, Beautiful, tonight again. And so I'm glad to be back with our 36th episode, bro. Hey, man, we're doing it. So just to introduce myself real quick, Dwayne Johnson, born and raised Valdosta, Georgia. Also owner of our company, Bridge Builder Education and Investments, and active community member within the Lowndes County, Valdosta, Georgia community. Just wanted to definitely welcome our guest tonight that we'll get into. We got a lovely set of ladies tonight that are going to drop a lot of jewels and knowledge with regards to our platform. And so I'm looking forward to that. But I'll pass the mic to you, Brother Bold.
Absolutely. Eddie Mack, Valdosta, Georgia, Lowndes High grad, UCF grad, as you can tell. I rep it everywhere I go. Yes, sir. Got an opportunity to get that healthcare administration bachelor's, master of public administration. Got to the corporate world, and now I'm trying to follow my brother. Just recently started E3 Legacy Group. So I'm just trying to be an entrepreneur and a loving dad to two wonderful children. I'm just trying to make it happen, man. You know, I'm just trying to make it happen every day. But I cannot make it happen without my partner, the Black, and also now our worrisome, bothersome little sister, Suzette Michelle. How you doing, beautiful?
That's an intro right there.
Right. I'm not sure how to take that, but yeah, that is quite an intro there. So glad to be a part of the trio. So I never had brothers, so I guess I am appreciative to have two brothers and all the joys that comes with that. But I am Suzette Michelle. I'm native of Lowndes County, native of graduate of Lowndes High School, Valdosta Technical College, where I graduated with a degree in radiologic technology, serving the community in healthcare. I'm so glad to be a part of this program. So glad to be a part of the conversation. We are making real strides, real traction in terms of restoring the Black family. So I'm very excited about the information that's coming forward. And we have two wonderful people, experts coming on tonight. So I'm excited to hear what these ladies have to bring and to contribute and to recommend for us to do to get us back on track in terms of restoring the Black family. And we're continuing this blueprint, man. You guys better take note. You want to be great, you better take note. So I'm just excited to be here. Let's get it started.
Well, with no further ado, as they say, first I want to give a shout out to Melanie Register McGinnis and also Dr. Demetria Hill. They were the two individuals that primarily suggested this topic on mental health. And again, Melanie Register, Dr. Hill, we appreciate that. If you would like to suggest a topic, definitely hit us up on email at theblackandthebold@gmail.com. Again, that's theblackandthebold@gmail.com. We'll definitely be responsive to your messages, and we'll make sure that we get you in queue for the topic. Otherwise, we ain't scared, as they say. We're on Facebook. Hit us up directly on Facebook. If you didn't like what we said, if you didn't like what Bold had to say, hit him up directly. He's got tough skin.
Yeah.
As we get right into this main topic, though, this is a part of our blueprint series that we decided to do. I think we're on part 3 at this point of restoring the Black family and creating generational wealth. Now, part 3 of this is going to be called Black mental health. And we want to get into this topic, which is a very, very important topic because recent evidence-based research has suggested the impact of intergenerational trauma on both a biological and psychological level. This offers a persuasive explanation for health inequities such as hypertension, obesity, depression, and heart disease in Black communities as a result of colonialism, American slavery, Jim Crow laws, segregation, the prison industrial complex, and over policing Black communities if that wasn't enough. The Black and the Bold have an in-depth discussion tonight. We have an opportunity to talk with Dr. Demetria Hill and Sharah Nicole, who provide additional perspectives on the Black mental health narrative and their recommended solutions for us tonight. So without any further ado, I'm going to give them a more detailed explanation, or excuse me, introduction when we get them in, but I'm going to be admitting them into the chat or to the Zoom call right now. So as they join in, I want to just let you know that Dr. Hill is currently CEO of a Work in Progress LLC, which is her primary practice. She is an illustrious graduate of the Valley. We know a few folks from the Valley. Shout out to Coach Hiram Johnson. We know a few folks from the Valley, FBSU. She's got a master's degree there in mental health counseling, counselor, and also a bachelor's of applied science and social work. She got her PhD at Capella University. Let's see. She's also a public speaker, which she should have something coming up pretty soon that she can share with us. Let's move on over to Sharah Nicole. Sharah Nicole is currently a prevention program manager with South Health District, which is a department within the Department of Public Health locally here in Valdosta, Georgia. She also is the reigning CEO of Go Forward Communications, which is her PR, public relations consultation business. So we want to make sure we give them the proper introduction, but without further ado, I'm going to let these ladies add some more flavor to the conversation. How are you ladies doing tonight? If you will, go ahead and unmute yourself and say hi for the camera for us. Make sure we got an audio check. How you doing, Dr. Hill? Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you.
All right. Sharah Nicole, how you doing? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing wonderful. Much better now. We got this thing rolling. Just want to cross some fingers tonight, make sure this thing goes.
Some help on this podcast. You know, I'm usually outnumbered.
It was off kind of hard talking about the best podcast on social media. I have to talk to you about that.
Listen, they call me bold because my mouth slick. Watch it, sister. Watch it.
So I am so honored and so delighted to have these young ladies. They are heavy hitters in our community, and they're really, they wake up every morning making a difference. And so I'm so excited to have them on.
Absolutely.
Dr. Hill, if you don't mind, I know I gave everyone a short and basically high level introduction there. If you don't mind, fill in some of the gaps that I may have missed with regards to your practice, your business, and what you have going on primarily coming up. I know you've got a conference that you're spearheading.
Okay, I am Dr. Demetria Hill, and I am a licensed professional counselor, and I am also a crisis therapist, mobile crisis. Wear kind of a lot of hats unintentionally, but it happens that way. In addition to providing mental health counseling, I also do trauma counseling as well, and substance abuse. My population that I primarily serve are teenagers, African-American women, and couples, whether it's premarital or marital couples. So I try to keep all things mental health on a positive note, even though it has a stigma attached to it.
Very nice. Okay. Sharah Nicole, if you won't mind there, fill us in with some of the gaps I may have left out in your introduction, please.
No problem. Hi again, everyone. My name is Sharah Nicole, and currently I do work with HIV prevention. I'm a program manager with South Health District. And my background stems from homelessness, nonprofit, and mental health from a non-clinical side. And last year, I was appointed as a health equity chair for the National Council of Negro Women on a national level. So mental health is one of our 6 programs that we focus on, but we do see a common correlation among all 6 health initiatives with mental health in that regard. So thanks you guys for having me.
Absolutely. We appreciate you both taking time out of your schedule. I want to definitely preface this conversation with the fact that, we've asked you to come on. I know that you have busy schedules. I know we've kind of been talking on some weeks and weeks, especially with Sharah there. So we appreciate your time tonight. And again, we're not going to try to keep you long, 30, 45 minutes tops. But if, like I said, if you need to cut out for any reason, you're definitely deserving of that as the women that you are and represent. So with that, though, I want to go ahead and dive into our conversation and just kind of kick off with let's baseline this. From you all's perspective and professional viewpoint, what is mental health and why is it important?
To make it really simple, mental health is basically making sure you're stabilized across the board. You're completely whole, whether it be good mental health or bad mental health. We shoot for good mental health, which is meaning that you're functional versus dysfunctional. You can operate in all capacities of your being, whether it be work, home, personal, spiritual, all the, the whole person.
Now, when it comes to mental health and mental illness, this is the last intro question I'm going to ask and let our other co-hosts here jump in. We've got a bank of questions, but I've heard the term growing up, mental illness, and then now it's kind of transformed into mental health as the word of choice nowadays, especially with the athletes and the celebrities now. So if you don't mind, is there a difference? Is there some sort of guidance that, we should consider when we're talking about mental health versus mental illness?
Very much so, because when you have mental health can look like anything. It can be you're depressed today. It can look like anxiety. It could look like bipolar. It could look like, just having the blues, as they like to say. But when we discuss mental illness, that's where we look at the chemical imbalance. So the chemical imbalance is the piece that most times medication is needed to balance out the brain. So some people will say something wrong with them. They're a little touched. That just basically means that they may need a little medication for stabilization. And oftentimes what mental illness look like, it may be bipolar, schizophrenia, some of the personality disorders. So that's the difference. Mental health can look like depression and anxiety, the simple things, and just having a bad day. And the mental illness is the more significant pieces which need medication to level it out.
Thank you for that clarification. That definitely makes sense. Sharah, in your line as the program manager there, do you see any correlation or any examples to where with HIV prevention? I know a lot of that is a lack of education in many of the cases, I would imagine. Do you see some correlation to mental health being a challenge along with the prevention nature that you have going on there?
Most definitely. Now, I'm speaking from a non-clinical background, so I just want to make that clear. I'm not like Doc, but from a non-clinical perspective, there's a very strong correlation, because what's happening is that back in our day, HIV was like the end of everything. But now you can live a long, healthy life with HIV. However, there's still a stigma with the mental health aspect as far as taking medications, going to your appointments on time, informing your partners of your status, not want that fear of letting other people know that your status is what it is. And it's like some type of, what I see a lot in prevention is a lot of paranoia with, if I'm seen in the clinic or if I'm seen with someone that works there, everyone's gonna know my business type of thing. So there is definitely a level of mental health that I've seen in the last 2 years that I've been involved with HIV prevention, which actually did surprise me, considering HIV has been around for over 40 years.
Great perspective there. Bold and beautiful. Y'all jump right on in. I know I'm hogging up the first few questions here. Go right ahead.
I just wanted to ask a question about, and you were speaking specifically about HIV. Have you seen, is there a way to kind of quantify the effects of HIV when when you talk about the amount or just the gravity of just how much it affects the mental health, or does that vary depending upon who it is that's carrying the infection?
Well, from my perspective, it varies, because you have clients that are very good about taking their medications and coming and making sure they're healthy. Some of them are healthier than most of us. They're on top of their medications. They're going to their behavioral health appointments. They're on top of it. But then you do have a small group, especially I've seen a lot of younger people that are not understanding the importance of prevention and going to behavioral health also when there's a behavioral health issue there. there's still that stigma of, on the HIV side of, well, I can just take a pill and be okay, versus let me try to prevent this from even happening. And from that side, I do see a correlation, but I see it more with the younger people now, more than I see with the older people. It's like they're invincible. So they have this false sense of reality when it comes to HIV prevention and care and seeking mental health. And then a lot of times with the mental health component, it's like, well, my mom and my family was like that. That's just how we are, versus let me just break this generational curse and seek help and get myself on track with my medications and my care.
Well, Dr. Hill, would you say that your approach would be different from hers, given you may be coming from more of a clinical side?
It would definitely be different because I'm coming from a clinical side. When they would come to me, it would because there would be the mental health issue superseding the health issue. Most of the time they are in denial about whatever their diagnosis may be, whether it's HIV or mental health, simply because there's a stigma attached. And so a lot of times they don't want to accept what the diagnosis may be. So it's just that getting them to accept what it is and then developing a plan to move forward so that they can be functional, with the diagnosis and functional in their everyday lives, work, home, taking care of the kids, whatever that looks like for them.
Wow. Yeah, go ahead, Suzette. Excuse me.
Absolutely. Ladies, this question is the same question for both of our professional panelists. Since the beginning of your professional involvement, have you seen an increase or a decrease in terms of the Black community being more acceptable of getting any type of help in terms of HIV help? Are people more open to receive, professional help, and also in the medical health field? Are people more open now? Because like we all have established, it has always been a negative connotation or a negative stigma. Do you see any type of positive traction where people are being more accepting to getting help now?
Doc, you want to answer that first?
It varies. There has definitely been an increase since the pandemic, but I wouldn't say it's in regards to, medical. The pandemic has increased an anxiety in people, which is causing more of a panic. So now they're more apt to talk to somebody because, hey, I'm having these panic attacks. I need some help. But that's what they initially come in for. And then there's a host of issues that follow that. So once they get in for the anxiety and realize therapy is not as scary as they thought it was, they're more open to receive treatment. And then if there are medical issues, my approach is, hey, I need for you to go see a doctor and address that as well.
And from the non-clinical side, I would say it's pretty similar to that part. And I'll speak as far as NCNW, National Council of Negro Women. What we're seeing is that we're really trying to push the African-American community to remove that fear. And it's not just HIV or mental health, it's across the board with vaccinations, all types of health issues that we typically ignore. From that side, it does appear to be, because of the pandemic, a small increase of people taking it a little bit more seriously. But there's still a huge gap in getting people to understand the importance of getting their mental health and their status, up to date and doing what they need to do to take care of themselves. And that's kind of what the challenge is in prevention is. Even now, and I'm 40 years old, and I still have people that don't understand that you can get HIV through certain methods, not by touch, not by kiss, not by food. And so there's still that barrier where people are like, oh, you with HIV prevention, they'll kind of avoid me like the plague until I hunt them down and educate them and give them a realistic view on prevention methods and taking care of themselves.
So let's unpack some of what you all touched on there, because this is the Black and the Bold. So let's get right into the dirt of it. One of the questions I had in our bank here is that why is mental health especially vital in the Black community, but at the same time taboo? Let's get into it.
Oh, wow. Well, my personal opinion is, because we've always been told you keep your business in the house, um, they haven't been allowed to talk about it. And then when they did talk about it, they was told to hush up, told they were lying. So they just kept it in, suffered in silence. And now, and then also, they were told Black people didn't go to therapy. Black folks can't afford therapy. So because they had that in their memory bank, that was what they stuck with. That was what they knew. And there's even a podcast on Clubhouse, Too Broke for Therapy or something like that. And there are just so many different avenues that you can go through where you pay as little as $30 for a session, up into the provider's full rate. So I think people are more open now because they realize that it's more of a conversation. Even when somebody comes in my office, I just say, "Hey, what's going on? What are you here for?" I'm not that typical clinical therapist. I'm a relaxed atmosphere, whether you want to be relaxed or not. So I reduce that stress and tension that they may feel just, by walking through the door. And once they drop their guard, they're more apt to tell me what's actually going on, and we can, formulate a plan to change some things.
And I'll agree with that as well, because one of my pet peeves being in health is that there's this sense of denial that there's even an issue because of that whole, well, we don't get therapy. And I've had so many African-American people tell me that in NCNW, out NCNW, in healthcare, out of healthcare, well, we don't believe in therapy, and I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to go to church, and that's going to be my therapy. And then we're not really letting it be okay you can go to church and believe in God, but you also have to do the work to get help if that's what you need to do. And so I think us having, as a community, having realistic, open, honest conversations about the issues that we need to address, and not being afraid of what people think or the stigma, because it's a lot more common than people think it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, everybody has a mental health issue. It may not be significant, but everybody has something that they've either experienced or currently experiencing or will experience it. Because if you've lost a loved one, you're going to experience grief. That's a mental health issue. If, your child is hurt or sad, or you get divorced, you're going to be depressed. So at some point, you've been depressed in your life. Some mental health issues are more significant than others. I have panic attacks driving down 75 beside semis. That's normal, but it's a mental health issue. The difference is I have developed a coping skill for when I'm driving and I can stay in control versus having this panic attack and causing, a wreck. So everybody has something that they deal with, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever. Even when an anniversary date rolls around or a loved one that has passed, that's a mental health issue. So I think when we begin to normalize it and talk about it, reduce the stigma, more people will get the help that they actually need.
I'm glad that you said that. We were just discussing some parts of that before the show with regards to just using, therapy as a form of maintenance, a health check of just, it's not a need per se that you see immediately that, oh, I need, go to therapy, but going to therapy or checking in, with your services, particularly as a clinical professional, that might be just something to be able to unload some of the things that you may have not even talked about or were told, as you said before, in the past, to just keep underneath and don't talk about. One of the things that, we discussed last week was just really the ongoing, it's just like a sedimentary rock being packed over generations when it comes to Black America, whether it's over policing, slavery, generational curses. I mean, we've got a lot that we in various families have dealt with, but don't know how to cope with. And particularly what you just actually said, opened my thought to what you had talked about with me directly online, was the poverty aspect of it. Also, housing insecurities, how that affects family life, from a relationship, parenting. I mean, all of that. If you don't mind, just you have the platform, use that. Go ahead.
As you said, what we were kind of discussing earlier, when we look at our setup as children, we live what we learn. So if we're in a poverty type setting, and nothing against the projects, because I had relatives that lived in the projects and those were some of my best days. But if you live in the projects, if you're not exposed to other people and other things outside of that, you think that when you turn 18, your job is to get you an apartment in the projects, get you a job, go to work, and just live happily ever after. However, if you're exposed to teachers, mentors, church members who show you something other than the projects, they show you the suburbs, they show you, townhouses, condos, you can own your own home one day. So you have some exposure outside of your norm, and you start to believe that you can get these things versus, okay, I'm gonna get my food stamps, my Medicaid, and my house or my project apartment, and I'm good. So if we're exposed to education, employment beyond, say, the current workforce of fast food or things of that nature, then and only then are our eyes opened up. We weren't exposed to learning about checking accounts, credit cards, and things of that nature. So when I know my freshman year of college, I had 12 credit cards because nobody told me not to get those credit cards, but I got the credit cards because they was giving out free gifts. I wanted the free gifts. Didn't think about that I was messing up my credit at the same time, but they gave me a free water bottle. I'm going to get this free water bottle for filling out this credit card. So it took years to, correct the mistakes that I made. So I, in turn, taught my children, and I'm teaching my children, do not get these credit cards. So when my daughter went off to college, don't get the credit cards. If you get one, make it be one only and used for emergency purposes. Same thing with my son. I started him with his own debit card when he turned 15. So in order to get money on your debit card, you have to work. You don't just get money just because. And if you don't work, you don't have no money on your debit card. So he's invested in 2 or 3 stocks. He created his Robinhood account and he watches his stocks. So I wasn't exposed to those things, but I in turn make sure that I expose my children to those things so that breaks the generational curse of the poverty mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Did you want to add anything onto that with regards to the poverty aspect, even where you manage, the poverty aspect of that, the lack of exposure, to different resources, even from the chair that you sit in?
Well, I'll have to speak from a personal experience. I grew up homeless at one point. So me and one of my sisters, we talk about that all the time, looking back on how that experience molded us to who we are now with the way we operate, the way we raise our kids, the way we work, and just want to break that generation or break that curse with our children so that they knew better and learn from our mistakes. So when you talked about the credit cards, I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me. But but I made a lot of really bad financial decisions because that's what I mimicked, what I saw my mother do. So it wasn't until I had my own children start working in workforce that I'm like, oh, this is not a good idea to have all these credit cards and all this open credit. And so I had to really unlearn a lot of those patterns. But I also think, speaking from experience, you have to be open to unlearning that stuff too, because it can get comfortable. And when I worked at the homeless shelter, you had a lot of people that wanted to break those patterns, but they didn't understand how or why, how to go about it. But then you had some people that were very comfortable there. And so when you're trying to encourage them to get out that mold, they've been in it so long that it's really hard to break that mindset and unlearn and unpack all that information that they're accustomed to. So I think a part of that is being open and having the drive and push to want to ask for help or ask for guidance, because a lot of times we don't ask for help. And I'm guilty of that too, but I've learned that it's okay to ask someone. If I know someone that knows how to invest, I'm going to ask the questions, and then I'm going to teach my children the same thing and not be afraid of what they may think or what they may say, because I want my children's and their children's children to grow up in a better way than me and my sisters did. So I think a lot of that has to do with you wanting to learn to break that pattern and to get out of that mindset of comfort, because it's real easy to sit back and get a check, get food stamps. And I'm not saying anything wrong with food stamps. I grew up on them. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying one thing I knew for myself growing up, I didn't want that for my children. And so me personally, I was like, okay, I'm going to work my butt off and do what I got to do so that my children don't have to be raised on food stamps. And not that there's nothing wrong with it, but for me, I didn't want them to be comfortable with that.
So that kind of took me back to one point that I was thinking when I was completing my research for my dissertation. I caught the devil trying to get the surveys completed because the women were like, "Oh no, I can't fill out this survey because I ain't getting my food stamps cut off." Ma'am, this has nothing to do with your food stamps. Defects won't get this information. I just need you to complete this survey. And I think I had to do maybe about 115 surveys. It should have took little or no time. It took me about 3 months to get those surveys completed because people was like, "Nope, I'm not filling it out."
And that was one of my questions, Dr. Hill, and also to Ms. Sharah Nicole, is the average person or the average household, what would be some of your recommendations to start that conversation when professional help is needed? Like what would be some of your recommendations of how someone will open that conversation in their house?
I think for me, with my family dynamic, they always called me positive Patty, which I'm fine with that now. It used to bother me. But I try to look at everything from an optimistic point of view. And I'm the kind of person, I'm going to address it. And you might get mad with me, but if I see there's an issue, we need to talk about it. And so I think it goes back to being realistic about what it is and addressing it and going from there. Because if you don't address it, it just builds over time. And then it becomes this big mountain that no one wants to address, but everyone sees it there. So I'm a little different where I'm like, okay, y'all might get mad at me, positive Patty's here, but let's nip this in the bud. Let's talk about it and let's see what we can do to resolve it. But a lot of people are not willing to have that open conversation or recognize that there is a problem. And speaking from personal experience, because I was trained the same way as a child, it took me years to be like, wait a minute, I need to address this. I need to fix whatever this is going on and address it and be okay about it and not care about anything other than being aligned and getting right. But I think it takes having that conversation and not being so stuck in that mindset of, I don't want people in my business. I don't know what people are going to say. You know, it is what it is, but you have to address it.
I love that. I love that approach because we often say, you know, I'm gonna protect my family by all means necessary. Well, that also includes mental health.
Right.
Mental health, getting yourself on track for that. What about you, Dr. Hill? What recommendations would you provide?
Well, one of the reasons I switched my practice when I started my private practice in 2014, I think whenever it was, I used to see kids exclusively. And I was working double time, sometimes triple time, because when I would take the kids back home, the parents would be gone. They wouldn't know I was on the way and still be missing in action when I dropped the kids off. So it was kind of pointless for me to spend all this time and pour into these kids when the parents were the issues. So I flipped the script and I said, okay, I'm going to work with the mothers. That way, if I can get the parents on track, then the parents can in turn take what they're learning and apply it to their household, which can improve their parenting and everybody's mental health across the board. Because if we take care of the mother can take care of everybody else. So that's been my approach the last few years.
I'm going to ask you a question about that, about being able to kind of address that in the home. This is a two-part question. The first part is with introducing these services, who do you think needs it most? Or well, I'll put it like this. Who responds better in therapy or counseling? Do women respond better or do men respond better? Is there a difference? Is there a different approach? Like, tactfully, how does that work? And then I'll ask the second part after you're done with it.
Well, I think women respond better simply because I'm a woman and because I'm so transparent. Girl, I've been there. You ain't experienced none that I haven't experienced, or nothing that I've not had a family member experience. So I'm already making myself relatable so that I can get to the root issue. And then even when they say something that should be shocking, I'll be like, oh, okay, that's it. What's next? Come on, give me something extra that's going to, go wow. And so when I don't respond with the wow, okay, well, maybe it's not as bad as she thought it was. So they're more open to go ahead and tell me what they have going on, and then we can address the issue. Well, with the kids, well, I can't tell, my mama said don't say nothing. So they ain't saying nothing because they're not trying to go home and get beat for telling the business. So the women are more receptive. Men are more defensive. They don't want to let down their guard with a woman, especially if it's an issue that they aren't comfortable with. Most men, they will come back the next session and say, okay, I got what you said that session. I had to go home and think about it. They're not going to tell me anything at that moment. And they might even be mad with me. Spirit don't sit well with me, especially if I'm calling a spade a spade. They'll leave mad, but they're going to return that next 2 weeks. So that's typically how that goes. Same thing with couples, especially with the alpha males. If I got an alpha male sitting in my office, I'm prepared to be there for 2 hours. Even though the session is an hour, I know I'm going to be there for 2 hours.
You better say that, Dr. Hill. You better say it.
Somebody came in the office last week and they was like, oh, she's seeing a couple. They turned around and went back out the door. And that's just the nature of it. Does it take longer for women to get to where they're going? It does, but they're more receptive to treatment.
I was just asking that on my side. I do couples marriage counseling and on the spiritual side, and I've come to realize that men don't embrace counseling when they're actually pouring out to women. And the reason I found this out is because many of the times the most emotional hurt that men experience are from women, and usually it's from information that they previously gotten that they threw back onto them. And this is through conversation after conversation, trying to get them to open up. So I think that's one thing and the reason I asked a 2-part question, the second part was who should be the initiator in the home when it comes to when you've identified a problem, when you see there are some issues, or we're providing a blueprint, trying to help families kind of pick up where they are to move towards the mark. What is something that, who should start the conversation? Should it be the wife or the husband, or should it be the grandmother, or how should that start? Just something that can kind of be just a normal, regular, something that everybody can use, like a cookie cutter, type of process.
First of all, I don't know why the grandma in the home, unless she got some physical health issues.
It happens.
You're right. Yeah. However, if she's in the home, she's not the head of that household unless that couple has moved in with her. Now, if they have moved in with her, then she makes all decisions because that's her house. However, if she moves in with the couple, the man is the head of that household, but the conversation can be initiated by anyone as long as it's a respectful conversation. Our household is set up that the kids can initiate a conversation, but make sure you got the appropriate tone when you bring it to me.
Yeah, that was one of the nuggets that we talked about prior to the show. Was I read it. I had a post I saw on social media that said, if you want to break generational curses, give your children space to tell you what you do that they don't like. And I think that's a perfect example of what you're saying, is providing that safe space for even the children, to identify when there's issues. I've done that recently with my children. There's some things I think all of us on the panel experienced something in the parenting that while they were growing up that they vowed they wouldn't repeat. But I think ultimately, just because we're creatures of habit, some things we will repeat, but because we're conscious and we're cognizant of what we're doing, if we're present in our homes, then we can recognize when we do things that aren't quite, beneficial to everybody. So I would definitely utilize that option, just a safe space for them.
Yeah.
I want to add on that because you bring up a valid point too, because I think as a Black, we haven't always been that good at letting our children have that space to say how they feel. And one thing I've been very cognizant with, because my oldest is a boy, and I had a friend was like, Sharah, you can't demasculate him. You in your mind, he's your baby, but he's becoming a man. And a situation a couple of years ago, I realized, wow, he is going to be a man, and I don't want him to go in the world thinking all women are supposed to, talk to him a certain way. I can't teach him how to be a man, but I can teach him how to treat a woman from a woman's perspective. But as his mother, I have to give him that space to openly communicate how he feels about things, when things bother him, when things make him happy. And I remember as a child, I was never given that space. It was just you do what you're told, you're seen, not heard. And I found myself doing the same thing. I said, oh, wait a minute, we can't do that. So I think we have to, as Black families, get better about being open to our children having that safe space to, even if we don't agree with them, letting them respectfully and openly communicate how they're feeling about things, because they might see the issues before we do when it comes to that mental health or the, things in the family. So we have to be humble enough, I guess the best way to say, to let them feel safe enough to talk to us. And my kids, some of my friends are like, your kids tell you a little too much. And they do sometimes. It's not always comfortable. It's especially that 16-year-old. I'm like, okay, Jay, wait a minute, prepare me. Let me be prepared. But I like the fact that even though I'm his mother, I'd rather him either go out in the street or go out to his friends to talk, and then I'm blindsided by something. So I think we have to be better as a community, allowing our children to talk to us and not making them feel like it's disrespectful to have an opinion or thoughts about something.
Well, I think that'd be a perfect segue if anybody else didn't have any. Black or Beautiful, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, no, I didn't have anything to add to that. The women so elegantly, explained it. I did have a question for both of them, respectively. At what point, outside of physical harm, at what point would be an indicator like, okay, this is beyond the help that I have inside my household, we need to seek professional help? What would be one or two of the indicators that, that extra help outside of the home is needed?
I would say the behavior doesn't change or gets worse.
When they start to isolate, stop communicating with you. If they've been a communicator and they stop communicating with you,
that's a big red flag.
Yes, isolating. And it's difficult to say isolation, because if you got a teenager, that's kind of what they do now. But it's a difference in the isolation that they do. What they're watching on TV, the music that they're listening to, if they've gotten rid of their friends, or if they've gotten these new friends that do all these new activities that they didn't used to do. So there are a couple of indicators in the gangs are initiating earlier and earlier. I think I heard someone say the other day, it might have been earlier today when I was on a different podcast, that they start initiating at age 8. So yeah, they're tackling them earlier. And I remember when my youngest was in elementary school and he came home, something, I don't remember which color it was, and he said something that sent off a red flag. And I asked, had he been exposed to the gang at the school? And he started looking at me real stupid. And I immediately went out to the school, and they kind of hated to see me coming, because they know I'm not your typical parent. I'm advocating for my baby, whether he's right, wrong, or indifferent. And so because I went to the school, they did find out that there was, a kid out there that was trying to initiate some of the younger kids in the gang. So yeah, there's a couple of things that you can just look for that's not normal activity for your child.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, because my son went through that phase briefly, they were calling themselves just a group. Mm-hmm. And we're like, okay, that's a little odd. So it kind of made it obvious. But one thing I implement with my kids that I wish I would have had as a kid is my son's 16, my daughter's just turned 12. So they're in their own little world right now. But once a week, we have family night. I don't care what you got going on. You can't go nowhere with friends. We're going to watch these movies. I don't care if y'all don't like it. We're going to do something, playing a game, something, just to kind of spend time with them, but kind of gauge where their headspace is at and what's going on with them in a way that's not real strong, but just kind of passive. Like, you know, how's everything going? What's been going on with you this week in school? How's their class? And what I found with my kids, they're a little special with that, but my kids are very vocal, but I have found, especially with my 16-year-old, once he feels comfortable, he will open up and tell me what's going on, even about his friends or stuff like that. And so I think as on our end, it's really important to implement something. Maybe it's not family night, something to where you can kind of give them, again, that safe space to kind of engage with you and kind of open up a little bit. Because with my son, once he's comfortable, he gonna talk. So, but I don't try to force my opinion or my views on things with him. I just try to listen, and even if I don't agree with them, I'll kind of find a way to give him a different perspective without coming off as he can't, have an opinion about it or not feel comfortable. Because there's been times where things have happened with students he knows. A matter of fact, a classmate at his school was in my clinic before, and he doesn't know who the person is, but it scared me enough to kind of have the talk with him from a mother's perspective, but also from my job perspective, and showing him pictures and educating him. And people are like, your mom talks to you about that stuff? But I'm like, I'd rather talk to him about that and be uncomfortable, because it was very uncomfortable, but talk to him and let him know, because I see a lot of people who don't talk to their children who are out there asking me questions that they can't talk about with their parents. So I think we have to also create that type of atmosphere that we're implementing something to engage with them, even though they might be at a challenging age. And I'm not a perfect parent, but I'm just saying, giving them an opportunity to kind of open up to you without it feeling like, okay, mom, you're always on me about stuff and you're always nagging at me, I'm gonna stay in my room type of thing.
Well, I think that's healthy anyway, simply because there are a lot of individuals that grow up into adulthood that don't know how to effectively communicate. They don't have a high level of emotional intelligence because we were hushed so much as children. So I definitely encourage, to have those conversations. And it's hard, because when you've kind of grown up a certain way and that's been your culture and you kind of agree with it because it kept you out of trouble, and that's going to be your safe statement. Well, it kept me out of jail. It kept me. Yeah, but, that might not be, we say that a lot of times, but that might not be what's effective for the next generation. So I think it's healthy to provide those conversations. I make sure that every day I pick my daughter up from school, I try to, turn the radio off, or, sometimes I do slip, but for the most part, I try to turn the radio off and say, hey, baby, how was your day? What did you do nice for somebody today? What did you learn today? What was the environment in class today? How did you feel today? I try to talk with her to have those daily opportunities for us to connect. So when she'll be 11 in December, but by the time she gets 14, 15, when the girls turn from baby dolls to aliens, they change on you.
Oh my.
Yeah.
It's real. It's real.
It's real. So I'm trying to get ahead, trying to be proactive to make sure, that we have that conversation, because I didn't do it a lot with my son. And so I started with him later because I was still programmed with what I knew. As you know better, you do better. And because this is the next question, I wanted to kind of build on that, because we have a question of what are the impacts of mental health on children raised in a positive environment versus a negative environment. But I want to add to that. Are we hurting our children because our mental health is poor too?
Yes. Yes, because if you don't address it, you're doing more damage than good. And I stick by that, specifically with married couples who hate each other. We stand married. We stand together for the kids. The kids know y'all got issues. They feel it. They see it. They know. They know. So yes, you are doing them more harm than good, because they feel the stress of strain in the home, the tension in the home, and they feel like they're the problem. They feel like if they could do something to change it, they become parentified. They want to cook and clean, so it takes the stress off of mommy, and then she can be happier. So yes, we are screwing our children up. And when we are aware of it and we do better and change our habits, then and only then do they get better.
I saw a post on Facebook a couple weeks ago, which is so ironic that you brought that up. And it was saying that the millennial generation is the generation that's trying to cut out the old patterns of that thought process with mental health. And and then our children they have more access to things that we didn't have access to at their age. And I thought about that. I'm like, that's very true, because I remember my mother's generation was so like, you don't go seek therapy, you don't talk outside your house, you don't do all that stuff. And then our generation is like, okay, we're broken. How do we fix this? How do we express it? And then we're trying to find that balance of stabilizing our mental health. And I see a lot of self-love going on social media now, a lot of manifestation, a lot of positive vibes only type of posts now. And it's like we're trying to counteract all that we've been ingrained to believe all this time. And I think as parents, we have to be understanding of that our kids have more access to stuff that we've never thought of at their age. And we have to be real about it and understand that we didn't have phone. I had a pager and I thought that was a big deal. So now they have phones, the internet, social media. I mean, they have so much access to stuff, but we have to understand that what worked for us is not going to work for our kids now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And interesting that you say that as well, because even in my most recent years, I can have conversations with my mom, but I can only do it in small doses and choose my words so that I don't become offensive to her about things in childhood. And she'll be like, oh, I never knew you felt that way. Mm-hmm. But we never had those discussions. And so even with my daughter, who's grown now, I would think back to some times where I didn't feel too good about my parenting, and I apologized to her. And she may not have even thought that or felt that way or whatever, but because I felt that way and I know that it was incorrect, or I didn't do it quite the right way, I apologized to her. And then even with my boys in the home, if I accuse them of something or I say something that I know is hurtful, I'll apologize so that I can, give them an example. Grown-ups are wrong too. We're not always right.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to definitely try to keep us honest to what I said in the beginning, as far as not taking too much of your time. And I do appreciate, the definite great conversation that we have in this opportunity. I mean, y'all are, without a doubt, a blessing for tonight's conversation. And for those that do see this, definitely like, share. But at the same time, if you get a chance to see this on a rerun, if you will, definitely contact these two individuals. I want to kind of, if the co-hosts don't mind, I'm wrap up with this with regards to how we were discussing pre-show. With regards to now, what do we do now? What is the blueprint going forward? How do we progress the Black community? Because, for instance, Doc Hill, you're right on Ashley Street, nearest downtown as can be. I mean, I don't know another center that can be as well exposed as you are. I mean, it's right there, the Mental Wealth Center, right there on Ashley Street. And so Sharah, you're right there in the podcast community. What show number are you on now? I mean, you're like season 3 is coming up in fall, right? You stop counting. See, brother Bo, we need to stop counting and just let it go.
You know what I mean? She's gonna have season 3 is gonna be in Daytona Beach or something. She get to move around.
Yeah. So I mean, y'all are well on your way, and at the same time, we as a community, Black community, we're still stuck in many ways, and especially here in South Georgia. And all of us have talked on many platforms, and Doc Hill and I, we talked earlier. I forgot where are we now, last week or this weekend, what have you. And there's some other things that we've got potentially moving forward from an economic standpoint. But, from a mental health standpoint, how do we move forward our community? Because it's not a conversation that, can be had on a day-to-day basis. It's not in our schools. It's not in some of the family platforms that are available at the dinner table, like probably all of us on the platform here have. But in the areas that need it most, how do we get this injection into our community?
Opening up the conversations to the community. I, for one, I do workshops. I haven't done one recently, but I do intimate workshops where I don't have more than 20 people so that they are comfortable enough to share, what's actually going on. And that's helped. However, I have a difficult time getting men to show up because that means they got to express their emotion. But if they see that other men are talking about mental health, I think that helps to move the community forward, because they see, okay, this is something that's actually taking place. I'm not the only one, and they're more apt to have the conversation.
Okay. So before you go, Sharah, I definitely want to just because Brother Bold, I know you probably know where I'm going with this. As far as when I hear our brothers need to get in the conversation, I immediately think of our other brother from another mother, Joseph Moore, Dallas Moore on Facebook. He is with the Kings United organization, and I think some of this kind of coalesces into a solution of how we reach across these lanes, if you will. We've got some awesome individual entities that are moving forward, such as the Kings. And I think that's a huge platform to be able to use is we need to, as men, Black men in this community, we need to bring our like-minded individuals and those that need our influence to the table for you. I think what we need to do with that said that you've addressed is that linking up with the Kings, for instance, and they've got a mentoring program where they just had a fishing tournament with fathers and sons. And if part of their programming is to coordinate with you and have these sessions, I think that might be part of the solution that's available.
Because even with some of the couples that I come in contact, I know that they don't want to talk to me about some of the things that they have going on. And they've asked, how do we get our help? Because we are so limited with Black male therapists. So that would be awesome, just so that they can have other men to bounce some ideas off of, and collaborate and coordinate and support each other. That would be huge.
Okay. Sharah, Nicole, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, I was going to say, because I see this on social media a lot, and not just with African Americans, but across the board. I think we have to be more empathetic when we see someone crying for help with mental health, so that they're comfortable to express that they need help. I think one thing that we have a bad habit, I'm not saying us, but a trend I see a lot is people criticizing or judging someone that's having a mental health issue, whether it's a anxiety attack, whether it's something they post on Facebook. A lot of times when people are posting stuff on social media, that's a cry for help. And I think what makes people hesitant is if we don't have that heart of, I don't want to bring the church into it, but just having that heart of Jesus, trying to love on that person and help them, not necessarily take on their issue, but support them through it and not be so critical or judgmental. And I think if we could allow people that comfort of knowing you're not alone, how can I support you? Not what can I do to help, but how can I support you through this? I think that can open the conversation as well and give people an opportunity to feel more comfortable talking about what they're going through versus feeling judged or feeling like they're being ostracized. I think that's something that we could really work on as a community. I think that would help a lot as well.
Yeah, we've got to normalize it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that about the church, because I do have the conference coming up Saturday, and that conversation is mental health and spirituality. And so the panel is composed of pastors and therapists, female therapists, male therapists, female pastors, and male pastors. We also have 2 policemen, because I want to talk about policing and mental health. One's local Sabrina Smith. And then we have a federal police officer that's traveling from North Carolina, and she's federal. And so we're going to have this policing and mental health conversation. And I'm ecstatic about that conversation, if nothing else, just because we know that that's a big thing in the media, police and mental health. However, working on a crisis team, we have good officers here that know to call us, hey, this looks like a mental health crisis, and they will stay there with that person until we get there. They will make sure that they get to the crisis center first versus taking them to jail. The only time they may go to jail is if they assault them before we can get there. But even at that, sometimes they'll still allow us to assess in 1013, and then they go to jail after they stabilize. So we have good officers here as far as that goes.
Dr. Hill, shameless plug. Go ahead and put it out there. You say you have a conference this weekend. Let everybody know, where it's going. Do they have to pre-register or?
It is best that they pre-register because lunch is catered. It's at Kingdom Builders Deliverance Center on Gorto, 1708 Gorto. It's from 10 to 4. That morning session is key speakers. We have Christopher McNeil, who's coming from Virginia. He's going to be talking about fatherlessness with African American men and mental health. We have Jan Glover. She's a cancer survivor. She has one of those cancers that most people shouldn't live to tell about, and she's been living with it for the past 10 years. We have Pastor Matthew Loveday, who's going to talk about the spiritual and the clinical, the difference between the two. And myself and Dr. Katrina Sweet will be discussing what the angry Black woman in the workplace looks like. Is it anger or is it trauma? I'm going to go ahead and do a shameless plug. It's not anger. It's not trauma either, but you come to the conference and find out. And then that afternoon half is all panelists. It'll be 2 panel discussions. We're going to be talking about hot topics in the community as far as mental health goes and that policing and mental health. So it's all things mental health all day Saturday.
To our brilliant and beautiful guests, how do our viewers connect with you all individually and locally? How do we get to Ms. Sharah Nicole? How do we get to Dr. Hill? Come on, give us some information.
Well, you can find my podcast on YouTube under Go For It Communications. You're a hater everywhere I go.
We just want your phone number and your
No, we want it. We want it all, Queen. Don't be deterred. Trust me. We want it all.
Famous, Mr. Mac. Haters make me famous. But I will say, you made me
Queen, just start from the beginning. This is their tactics. Just start from the beginning.
Thank you, Suzette. That's why I like you. That's why I'm like.
Try again.
Persevere.
So I do some of my interviews on YouTube, Go For It Communications, but you can also catch the actual podcast on Anchor, Apple, Spotify, Google, Pandora, Amazon, and I do a mental health collaboration with a local therapist here, Dr. Leah McMillan. But I am open to other therapists. It's not just one therapist in particular, but we are really trying to work on bringing attention to that, particularly with our demographics. So you can catch me on Facebook, Instagram, Greater Purpose Podcast, and I'm sure I'm overlooking something, but I'll be worldwide soon. So, I'll let y'all know that when that time comes. Edward Mack,
And we'll be looking for an invite on your little show. How about that?
Oh, my little show.
Your little show.
They just won't submit that women rule the world. They just won't submit to that.
I'm saying it's all right though. You see, Dwayne ain't saying nothing.
He knows. Queuing up the sounds over here. Man.
Dr. Hill, how can we engage? How can we find and connect with you?
Just like Dwayne said, I'm on Ashley Street, right across from the subway, down the street from the courthouse. You can't miss me. Yes, you can reach me on Facebook at Dr. Hill Can or a Work in Progress LLC page, Twitter, Instagram, which I'm never really on, but I do check the messages every now and then. I'm on
Mhm.
psychology today and therapy for Black girls. So you can reach me at those methods.
And
Thank
the
you,
building, building she's in is beautiful. Y'all have to take a tour if you haven't seen it yet.
Mhm. Wonderful, ladies.
So-
I am so grateful to have you guys, your presence. I'm just so grateful to be in your presence.
And you know, we got your back, Suzette. We got your back tonight.
Thank you, love.
Well, wait
How
till
about
y'all
Rita?
get off.
Right. About your bedtime now? Jeez.
Ladies, we appreciate it. And if
Thank you.
there's
Thank you.
anything that we can absolutely do for you all, please do not hesitate. I think you can easily reach out to any of us three. If not, find a way, send a bird or something. But we definitely want to be supportive to what you all have going on. And this won't be the last time that you hear from one of us, at least. So definitely appreciate the time and appreciate the knowledge. And let's just keep moving the culture forward.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
All right.
I
Thank you all so
enjoyed
much.
it.
Thank
I
you, guys.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You all have
All
a
right.
good night.
You too now.
You too.
Awesome conversation.
All
Man.
right.
Great conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful, brilliant, 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 brilliant. Yeah, love it. So,
I'm glad to-
gentlemen, those ladies dropped some very practical, very applicable jewels that we can use in our community, and something that we can use immediately. You know, we don't have to, go complete a course. They dropped some jewels right here in this podcast tonight that our viewers and our listeners can implement immediately to hopefully see some immediate change in the right direction in terms of mental health.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think from that conversation, give an opportunity to kind of juxtapose the two together, and also kind of glean from, from the clinical side and from that practical side, just to understand that there's not one approach to mental health or mental illness. I mean, it's a, it's definitely got legs and hands and feet. There are several different ways we can address the issue. Because I know that in my instance, I would like to focus on the men. Male portion of therapy and counseling, just for the sake of it's different.
Well, I mean, we're talking
about
about the blueprint and the restructuring and restoring of Black families, and the men are the pinnacle of the family. So we definitely have to start there first, and I think it would be beneficial and roll downhill, so to speak.
I totally agree with that. I think you're on point with that. The reason being is because masculinity is under attack, and it has been under attack for the past 20 years. And now we're starting to see the real ramifications of what happens when you handcuff masculinity, and you silence and muffle, the man. I mean, I think we're going to have to bring back the cigar bars. We're going to have to bring back the man den, type of persona. We're going to have to bring back hanging out with the fellas, because that's how men actually utilize therapy. That's therapeutic to us, to go and play basketball with the boys, and go shoot guns with the boys, go hunting with the fellas. If we're going to put it in the blueprint, I think we should put in the blueprint that every man should have his tribe. Every man should have a group, or at least one or two male friends that he can get away with without having to explain why he's going. Having to give some type of explanation of why he needs to be around his fellas. It's no different than when the women go shopping. Some people say, I need some what do they call it? Retail therapy.
Wow.
And it's like you all have all of these nuances for you having therapy, but yet a lot of times, and I think we can honestly say this, a lot of times men do get, that short end of the stick when they want to go hang out. And it could be for a number of reasons, but I think that's something that we need to really bring back. And I think that our women should encourage it.
I would agree.
I think it should be encouraged that we have that, that we have that freedom to do that, because, men don't want to sit around and talk. That's why men don't really respond to therapy, especially when it's a female, because of one of the reasons, because I gave earlier, but we're not raised to open up. It's going to take a while to get us to really open up, to really get to the real us, because there's a certain persona we have to hold up. And so I think that's just like Black. I mean, this is my brother, pretty much. We've known each other since we were 7 years old, 7, 8 years old. So there's nothing I can't take. I can't go to him. I mean, I could go to him boohoo crying, and I don't have to worry about, him taking that information and be like, well, you're a sucker for that. Like, no, but that's therapy for men.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's just something that we have to, if we're going to put it in the blueprint, we definitely going to have to say that every man needs his own group of friends that's not in his household, that's not related to him. They might be, but we need that outlet as well. So I'm definitely advocating for the men to have those opportunities, to have that mental health, or those golf court trips, or the batting range or the shooting range or whatever we're going to do.
Well, I'm definitely looking at our other brother Joseph. I'm gonna definitely kind of suggest him in the future with regards to some of the solution, because I think he's just really scratching the surface with all. I know for several years now he's spearheaded the Kings United organization, and they are definitely, from a discussion I had with him earlier, they are definitely breaking ground in various ways and getting attention from various other organizations that want to support them. And I'm gonna make sure that if there's anybody in the rooms that I kind of circle in, and they're looking for some community organization to partner with, yes, and fund. I want to make sure that the Kings organization has that opportunity, because just like you said, Bold, with regards to having that away time, I think he's just scratching the surface. As I said before, during the time we had with the ladies there, is that he had the father-son fishing tournament, I think about a week ago or this past weekend or something.
Yeah, it was last week.
Yeah, just last week. So I mean,
I missed it too. I hate I missed it.
Yeah, I mean that's just one example of. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say that's just one example of what he's able to do for the male counterparts. If we can just start there, and it grows, and you've got the young males there with you, I mean, we can start something very special.
Yeah, and I was just gonna really concur and say the same thing with you, because I had an opportunity to be a part of some of the activities and some of the community events that the Kings United hosted. So they're not just specific to the males. So females, we can support the males. That particular project, they were repainting one of the homeless shelters, and they invited men and women of the community, which is how me and my young people participated in. And we went and we painted, and we tore down.
Well, that's I agree with that, but that is what I'm not encouraging.
I understand
I'm encouraging spaces where there are no women.
Right.
That's a part of the problem.
I get that in terms of you guys having your men powwow. I'm just saying women, how we can support them when we're invited. There are, just like the father and son event that was specifically for father.
Oh, you said when you're invited.
Yes. Okay. So the Kings United, the particular one that I participated in, they invited, men, female, youth to that event.
Y'all ain't trying to show up at the pond while we fishing.
Yeah. No.
We found y'all.
We ain't trying to crash the party. Come on now. But I'm just saying, you guys are asking for support. I'm saying that we can be supportive in the way that is appropriate, and that the organization allows us to be supportive in. I'm not saying that we should show up to every event, sir, but I am saying that when our support is needed, let's show up and be supportive to our men who are trying to change the narrative.
Yeah, that's what we can work together.
Correct.
Well, I know I did want to let some of these comments go by. I know we've got a lot of them. If you all want to kind of address those a little bit. I don't know how far back we want to go, but
I mean, it's really the OG Thomas show.
Yeah, man. It's the OG Thomas McIntyre chat room. He's what do you call him? What is he? He's got the wrench. He's got the wrench in the chat room. But it's a lot we can discuss. But I don't know. I mean, I'll address one of the last comments that he made, but he did say we wouldn't. When he talks about marriage, in the counseling and the marriage that we spoke of briefly. He said we wouldn't need so much marriage counseling if we would educate people on who they should and shouldn't marry.
Oh, absolutely.
They need to know more about themselves. In our community, we are raised to be married. And that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's speaking to the wholeness of the individual before you try to have a union with someone. Yeah.
Right. And I always encourage, when I get an opportunity to do marriage counseling, I always encourage that they do at least 6 months, before, at minimum, before they get married, to hash out some of the issues, to answer the hard questions, to ask the hard questions, to become vulnerable, in the process. Because once you get married, I mean, that's the whole point. You're supposed to grow together. You're supposed to continue to unfold, so that you can expose even deeper levels of who you are. But if you're holding back, if you're hiding, if you're a narcissist or whatever, you're going to make your marriage very, very difficult. So I totally agree that it should be couples counseling and individual counseling prior to marriage. After marriage, you should have at least 2 or 3 sessions a year, at least. Because you have seasons change. As you age, you change. As years go by, you change. Life situations change. One of you may get sick or lose a job. So I think, you should have at least, 3 to 4 sessions a year, with each season. That's just my opinion. To keep everything.
Well, I mean, we also learned that during the research of this show that, it's recommended or highly recommended that counseling is recommended for the maintenance of the relationship as well. You don't necessarily have to be in a crisis to seek counseling. You can just have it to maintain the healthy relationship. Yeah. So
there's a lot that growing up and with my spouse, growing and evolving and changing, all that is going to have to happen along the way. But I think just like what y'all saying, taking and just like your recommendation, your diagnosis, Brother Bold, of the minimum 6 months, take this pill for a minimum of 6 months. That definitely is necessary because you need to ask those tough questions. You need to learn where that person has come from, what they've been through, how they were raised. Go see their family, and not because you want to show up with a girl on your arm, or you want to show up so the family can see that you got a man. But no, you need to do some investigation and find out what's going on in that family. I mean, so I totally agree with you all on that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Let's see if we got any other comments that we're making. Let's see. Okay, well, let's address a comment that OG Thomas McIntyre.
What did he say?
He said the vast majority of us ain't ready. Do you agree with that? Ready for marriage? Ready to actually go into counseling? Ready to actually endure therapy?
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I have no problem with that. I mean, I'm listening to what your question is and marinating on it for a few seconds and not jumping to the answer. But I mean, I don't think a lot of us are ready for marriage. And I think that constitutes to some of that high percentage for divorce rates, because we haven't had those conversations. If financial reasons are the main source of divorce, you haven't asked the right questions about how you're going to handle financial pitfalls or financial planning. And so it becomes a traumatic event when finances go awry or you're faced with a difficult decision.
Definitely. The CDC reported in 2019 that 50% of all marriages end in divorce. So of course, some conversations are not being had, and the tough conversations, the important ones, and they need to be had early on in the relationship, before a whole lot of feelings, take place. And you just kind of omit the important stuff because, you're in love now. But yeah, you need to have those tough conversations. If not have it for just the 2 people involved, what about the future children that might come into the relationship? So we need to fire on all cylinders. We need to have those tough questions, and if there's any mental health issues that need to be addressed, address those immediately.
And then if it's not an if, right? I mean, everybody has some sort of mental health
So we learned
challenge
that
going
tonight.
on.
Yeah, we learned that tonight.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Healthy
Yeah.
and unhealthy mental. So yeah,
Nobody's perfect.
not if, but when. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just adding to that, we talked about, we came up with our own solutions, with the maintenance check, right? We call that the maintenance check. We need to
Yeah.
employ some of that. Is that before you get into marriage, I mean, start going to counseling together, start understanding how you operate, and can you operate with that counterpart, that to be spouse, and deal with this and grow through these challenges, because you're going to have to deal with it at some point, whether it's just
It
simple
doesn't go
communication.
away.
It
Yeah.
doesn't go away. Right.
I was thinking about when you all were talking, Dwayne, you brought up the maintenance check. I was, I'm always bringing up these analogies. That's just how my mind works. And I think that both men and women have to be cognizant, present, conscious of each other to know when the maintenance light comes on, when the check engine light comes on.
Oh, I like that. I like that analogy. Yes.
Yeah, because if we're gonna have warning lights in our automobiles that something is on the way to tearing up, marriages just don't break up overnight.
Right.
We that light came on 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But because we're what Sharah was saying about, some people, or Dr. Hill once said, some people think, young people think they're invisible, and they think that they can just work through it and it'll be all right, and things will work out, or God will fix it. I'm just gonna pray about it, and then 3 years down the road, that Genesis serpent has become to a Revelations dragon.
Wow.
So, we're gonna have to begin to understand that when we're in relationships, we're gonna have to be able to pick up when something's wrong with our partner, and not beat them down about it and say, "Why are you doing this? Why you?" We're gonna have to get out of that old mind frame and be able to sit down and have real conversations. Suzette, you brought up that 50% statistic. Well, if you go a little bit deeper, the data tells us that it's usually two things: sex and money. So you mean to tell me that we got married and we didn't talk about sex and we didn't talk about money?
Mm-hmm.
The two things that the state actually rectifies you as an institution. The fact that you are together, you are a co-opulated couple, and then secondly, you are mending your finances together. You're becoming an institution. Mm-hmm. So the two main things people get married for, I guess, they're not even talking about. And primarily in our demographic, 1 in 4 are going to get married. What is it? One in 4 would be married, and then you turn around and say, about 70% of those are going to be in a divorce. So we're going to have to do better on both sides. And
I'm sorry. That's what marriage is like for some folks.
One of our viewers tonight, Miss Jarkay Harris, said we have to unlearn and relearn. And that was a part of the comment that I was just about to make. A lot of the times we are so prideful as a people. We say that we are fight for our loved ones and fight for our families, but we need to change the way in which we fight. Not always about the physical fight. And we gotta attack it mentally as well.
We need to get our sister to learn how to fight fair. You're right. You're right. You're exactly right.
You should have known. Of all people, you should have known.
Fight fair. Fight fair.
I'm trying to be cooperative and supportive, but you are making
let's get ready to rumble.
You knew it was coming at some point.
I said I'm gonna be, supportive and submissive tonight. But you know what?
Get our sisters to fight fair. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I'm very excited and very I feel very encouraged about our guest tonight and the topic. Yeah. Tonight, I think we have some real solid foundations to make some traction in terms of mental health. So we have the information. Now we got to do the work.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thomas, OG Thomas, another comment. I want to go there.
Yeah,
we need when we talk about the children. I think this is another important piece. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Y'all remember that?
That boy can sing.
That boy good. That boy, you got to be great. Anyway, Thomas McIntyre said, we need to start educating our children much, much earlier, starting with reading reading while they're in the womb.
Starting with reading to them while they're in the womb. Mm-hmm.
First of all, Edward,
it could go both ways.
Are you reading correctly?
It says starting with a reading. So I didn't know if he was talking about like a tarot card reading.
No.
Well, I'm just saying.
We're going to figure this one out.
I'm just wondering because think about it. That's music, man. You got to think about it now. If we actually get into our history, there was a lot of that going on. They were.
Well, he did
a lot of that. So reading is not foreign. So
but his preceding sentence was educating. So I think he's talking about actually reading them. Educational.
Let's go with that. Good answer. Let's go with it.
We'll take that. I mean, unless you're gonna come on and tell us what
we're not calling Mother Ruby in on this one, okay?
Everybody don't think it's wrong, and I may feel a certain way about it. There are other people that might really live their life by it. Back in our old days, they did. So
yeah. We're not doing the chicken bones and rolling. No, we're not doing all that just yet.
That's how we lost Africa. But anyway, go ahead. What was your comment?
Yeah, I agree with him. We need to start as early as we can. We learned tonight that that gangs are recruiting our kids at the age of 8 years old to join a gang and be initiated. So yeah, we definitely have to counteract that misinformation as early as we can.
Yeah, it's so important. We've talked about it as far as Bold and I, it's so important for you to have conversations with your children every day. And do not be afraid to have it ain't too early, it ain't too late, whatever it is that's holding you back, but have these conversations and allow them, Bold, you said it earlier this evening that, no questions off limits, as far as the table, the opportunity, or you say, give them a space. A space of comfort to where they can come to you and talk about anything that they need to.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially now, bro, because of all of the underhanded propaganda that's happening, especially when you start talking about, the essence of masculinity and femininity, male, female, all this pronoun stuff. I mean, Walt Disney has been inserting all types of unseen, unconscious mind games, subliminal, Sigmund Freud, Freudian type stuff. Netflix has done the same thing. I think we really, really, really need to. I think this is important. It's paramount for us to do this because the things that we didn't learn about sexuality until we were a little bit older, these kids can learn at 5 and 6 with a cell phone.
You're right. Even younger than that. I mean, I know 2-year-olds know how to operate tablets and hearing on.
Yeah. And I just think it's important for us to. I'll put it like this: for several decades, we have not included the children in building their legacy. They've been the beneficiary, but they weren't a part. They weren't present when we were writing the policy. They don't know what it took for us to get to where we are now and what we need to do to get you all in a better space when it's your turn. And so I think it's important for us to now bring them into the conversation, just like we did back in times past, in the village. There were a lot of conversations that the children were a part of. There were some that weren't when it came to war and stuff like that. But when it came to, the young men knowing, just like, the rites of passage, at the age of 13, they had to go out and prove they were a man at 13. Here we go with the bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah. The young lady and the young man, you are a man, you are a woman now.
Right.
You know, at 13, these Jewish kids, they get businesses, they get things that are, you know, they get put in place,
Yeah.
you know, endowments and all type of things at 13. And I think by the time they get 18, 19, 20, they already in business.
Yeah.
You
And
see
they
what I'm
learn
saying?
how to manage those things.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's another way why we talk about, you know, restoring Black relationships, you know, and Black wealth, generational wealth, is just us sitting down and sharing knowledge. You know, that's how a lot of our stuff was passed anyway through, you know, oration. So why not involve our children in the conversation? Why not let our 15 and 16-year-old boys and girls let them sit down and we give them a budget and they figure out how all the bills are going to get paid. Let's put them in the right position now. I know what Brother Black and I've been talking about this for a couple of years, and he's done an amazing job of, you know, kind of teaching his children about the importance of investing and preparing for your future and providing other options and things like that. That's really, really, really important, because by the time those kids get to graduation, they're not thinking, oh, I need to go get a degree. They're thinking about, oh, how can I build this business? Or how can I jump right in and grow this, go start working with my dad or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They have a different trajectory of where they want to go. I think that's important just by having a conversation. So
Absolutely.
And conversations are real easy. I mean, when I say that, I mean, everything is possible with regards to how we communicate with our kids, because one thing I was thinking about is that we have to understand that times have changed with regard to, you know, the conversations that, you know, we did not have with our parents because we weren't at threat of being exposed to everything that this generation is exposed to. So you have to understand what the threat is, what the war is. And the war is basically what's being heavily exposed in. Like you said before, Bold, is that, you know, they're being bombarded with all this imagery. And Suzette, you said the same thing with regard to the subliminal messaging that's been going on for years. But we had sort of a counteract or counter to some of that, even though we grew up on the Disney stuff and all the Looney Tunes that had all of that in it. But, you know, we had a very good sense of identity and a lot of things poured into us. But now that's taken away for the sake of what's politically correct in the household and trying to be, you know, the friend of your son or daughter. And, you know, some of that, you know, is watered down when it comes to parenting. And so I think even as I say that, you know, we should have an opportunity next week for those that are still with us to have that conversation about parenting. And we should have at least a couple of guests, same way we did tonight, that are going to dive into that conversation, because we have to really go unorthodox with what our cultural parenting has been for several decades now. And like you said, really look back at what culturally we used to do, preparing a 13-year-old to be a man, to be a woman, to be able to take on major responsibilities. I mean, it is possible, but we've got to take that responsibility as parents also.
yeah, that's a great point. That
we you know, we as parents, we have to get back to where we are responsible for providing them with the foundation and the resources they need to be successful.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times we drop the ball as parents. And by the time, you know, the children become of age legally, they have no idea how to navigate adulthood because we have dropped the ball in terms of training them on how to do so.
Yeah, and Shamanti makes a very good point. People need to be honest with their children and keeping it real with them. We come from the generation or generations of people trying to keep us safe from certain things we needed to know. You know, they don't need to hear that. They're too young for that, or they're too young to be a part of this, or whatever. I think that's been a part of the handicapping for sure. But us being able to be honest, that's one thing I've done with my son consistently, is share with him a lot of the mistakes that I made. My biological father, wasn't around after the age of about 6 or 7. He was kind of in and out. And so my stepfather was there, but, you know, he shared a lot of things with me when it came to how to be a man. But most men don't get, you know, the elders sitting down with them and saying, hey, this is what I did wrong. This is where I've dropped the ball. You know, I made these mistakes in my 20s, or I made these mistakes as a late teen. A lot of times we don't get that. And a lot of guys are, and I'm not sure about our sisters, but I know a lot of the guys, we kind of learn by mistake. We had a motto back when I was working with the power company that said that all of our rules are written in blood, which means somebody had to die or got seriously injured, before we were able to actually learn a life lesson. And I think that's another thing that we're going to have to get out of that thinking. When our daughters are out, they're dating guys, dating these young boys. I think our sisters need to be absolutely transparent with these. I've told my daughter at the age of 10, boys don't love you. And I had to explain it. I said, baby, boys won't love you. They're going to like what they see, but they have another urge or desire that they're trying to fulfill. So you're going to have to keep your integrity. You're going to have to be able to see past that. And so it's the same thing with my son. I've shared with him so many different instances where I've made mistakes. And so I think that is extremely important for us to share our mistakes as well. When Shamanti brought up about being transparent and being honest, I think that's an amazing point that we really need to facilitate better children, through sharing our mistakes so that they can be a better version of us and represent us well when they become adults and become, responsible citizens. So Shamanti, thank you for that comment. That was a great comment. Yes, we need to be completely honest and transparent. What do you think about that, Suzette?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the pillars of the foundation. If we're going to really, truly restore, our Black families, it has to be grounded on transparency and truthfulness. Otherwise, it's delusional. Anything else besides that is delusional, and if you're going to make any traction, especially, our goal is to move forward and be successful in life and to achieve all the goals. If you're going to do those things, you have to have a level of transparency and truth, not only to who you're committed to, in terms of the family, but to yourself. Sometimes we're talking about, mental health and self-care. You have to be honest with yourself. What you need work on, the areas that you need to tighten up on. So be truthful with yourself, starting with yourself first, and get the help that you need, or, pursue, educating yourself in an arena that you might be weak in. Just start there, and then then spread it out in your circle of influence and encourage them to do the same. I think that's how we're going to normalize it. Transparency, truth, starting with yourself, and then encouraging others to follow suit.
Black, what do you think would be something that an actionable step we can add into the blueprint when it comes to us providing, creating that safe space? How do you think we do that?
Man, I mean,
across
the board. I think a lot of it has to do with how we interact in the community. And, because when you say across the board, that's where I had to go, because I was thinking, localized into the households, but across the board, it makes me go into the thought of community based. Our neighborhoods have, neighborhood forums. The city is not going to do that for you. But, I don't care if it's your apartment complex that you're a part of, but just try to drum up some sort of community forum. And I think a lot of perhaps our city elected officials could even take on that platform also, because they're used to trying to corral a mass of people, but going into communities and actually having these forums, that's the way I could think it should happen, because of the nature of where we are now. Is that some of the pessimistic value that I have, I guess, is just that it's just not going to naturally, organically happen, even if we talk about this every week. But I think those that get it need to take the action to bring the masses to the table and start sharing resources, like I talked about before with Dallas, Joseph, and Dr. Hill. There is that, if he's doing something that corrals males together, and we need to basically bring the herd to her. So the those that would not have otherwise sat in that chair, or, not just her, but, if we got some male, she talked about male therapists also. I mean, obviously that would go along a lot better with the male to male counterpart of our relatability and understanding. But I think we need to get our leadership, whether it's young or old, on the same table first, on the same platform.
Yeah. And I would even go as far as to say it has to be an accountability component, whether that be an individual or organization, somebody that's going to say, be very truthful with you and say, hey, listen, this is what this is where the problem lies, and this is how we're going to try to address it or attack it and correct it. So definitely accountability. I want to give a shout out to some people that I invited tonight, along with the queens that always come, Jarkay and Tammy.
Yes.
And tonight we have some newcomers tonight that I invited. I'm so excited to see them on.
Okay.
Carson and Cheryl Williams. They are new tonight. I sent
What's up?
Yeah, I sent out some links there in the house. So we got some, people. And then of course, those are my queens, of course. But Brother Thomas and Calvin, those are our mainstays, and Shanita. Yeah. Welcome. I'm so glad, Janae. We're so glad to have everyone here tonight. I mean, the conversation needs to be had, and we're so glad you guys are here to chime in. Shout out, salute.
Most definitely. Look, peace and light. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, sis. That's what I'm talking about. Well, I know that we've talked pretty acknowledgement about some of the things that I thought, I guess we felt would be practical steps. But I guess I know we've got about 12 more minutes, and I definitely wanted to bring this up. Our last question for the night: does the cost of mental health prevent Black families from seeking help? What do you think, Suzette? Do you think it's a cost issue, and I don't want to look at it as I want us to look at it in a little bit broader sense, something like opportunity cost. What is it going to cost me, whether it be financial or emotional or social? Does the cost outweigh the benefit when it comes to seeking mental health?
I think that the narrative is changing for the better. I mean, financially, definitely the cost is not a problem as it has been in the past. And to go more in depth in that, the insurance companies did not even identify that as a benefit in your insurance policy back in the day, several, years or possibly a decade back. They didn't acknowledge mental health as something that you would get included into your health insurance policies, but now it is a component, and a lot of the insurance companies cover that copay and costs. And as Dr. Hill addressed also tonight, some sessions are as cheap as $30 a session. So the financial component, I think, is more feasible for people to get the help they need.
You're on mute.
My bad. In terms of cost, the emotional bang, I think that as some of the ladies were saying, I think we're at the point where we can't afford, I think the cost is, we can't afford to keep delaying the inevitable. We got to get it, we got to get this mental health component in if we want to progress and restore the Black family. So I think the cost, we can't afford not to address it.
I think we can't afford to overlook it, especially during this time with all of the pandemic. I mean, the last year and a half has been absolutely emotionally taxing.
Wow.
On a lot of people. Our entire lifestyle has been shaken and delivered to us in a way we've never had it before. I mean, we haven't even seen masks since 1919, something like that.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, not in this country. We had the bird flu. We saw all the Asians, wear masks, but
yeah, and
now we know why.
Yeah, and to have it happen to us directly. I mean, it has really affected our ability. I mean, cabin fever was a real thing last year. Do you know how many people were committing suicide and overdose? I mean, the methamphetamine overdose was through the roof last year. I mean, suicides was through the roof last year. So mental health and mental illness is a real thing, y'all. We definitely want y'all to really take this really seriously. Reach out to someone if you're stressed. Reach out to someone if you're having those moments where, life has become too much for you. I mean, I say this all the time. We look at our phones and we have so many phone numbers in our contact list, but when crises hit, sometimes we don't know who to call. And I think a lot of times we misappropriate people in our life. We give them position they have not earned. If you're going to be in my contact list as a close or a favorite, I need to know for a fact that if I reach out to you at 3 a.m, you're going to answer the phone. You know what I'm saying? Like things like that. I just had a conversation with a brother last week that I hadn't talked to in probably a year. And when we began to talk, he began to pour out a lot of stuff that had been happening to him. Almost lost his home. I mean, he didn't have any income last year, raising children and about to just go into depression and all this kind of stuff. And he said, I didn't have anybody really who I could count on. That's sad. Right. That's sad when we have 1,500 people in our phone, and we don't have anybody we can call in the crises. So I think we need to really readdress who it is we have in our contact list. Not just to have a bunch of names, but have people who we really count on, who are really friends, not just associates.
Yeah. Guys, I want to give a shout out, take a moment, but I absolutely agree with you. Make sure, and that was one of the things that I was going to say too. I know every single person on this platform, we are here to support you in your mental health journey. You will get no negative feedback here, no pushback, no, judgment or at all. Make sure whoever you have in your circle or people, as Bold has said, that you deem close to you, make sure they are positive and supportive, because we all have a lot of people that's going to, be negative in your life, but be very selective about, who you deem as your close circle, and make sure they're going to support you in whatever state you find yourself in. But I definitely want to give a shout out. I'm so excited that Ms. Wanda Todd has joined us tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Ms. Todd, how you doing?
Right. That's family right there.
That is family. Yes.
Let me give her some. Hold on.
Yeah, give us some. Yeah, give us some. Her, Miss Wanda Todd and Mr. Charles Todd have definitely been very instrumental in a lot of young folks' lives in this community.
Yes.
But she did have a comment tonight. We want to make sure we highlight that. She said, if we could just stop asking, what do you have to be depressed about? She says she hears a lot of people saying there's a little too much, and that bothers her. And that's that condensation, that condescending, like, oh, yeah, why are you depressed?
Right.
We gotta get
that shuts down the conversation right there.
Yeah, we gotta get that, out of our conversation and just meet people where they are. If they say they need help, take them for face value. They need help, and don't add to the problem or pile it on, as to say. But welcome, Miss Wanda. Thank you. I'm not sure if this is your first night, but we are here. You can meet us here every Tuesday night. So we would love to have you come back and chime in with us.
Yeah.
What about that? I do want to do that because I know we got 6 minutes. You got anything
go
else?
ahead. Yeah, if we're wrapping up, you go ahead and do your thing, man.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up, I know we talked about some of the other benefits, but what are some of the costs that are negative if we keep putting off?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of see that story unfolding as it is. We're going backwards, and as a culture, as a community, I think we're just going to see the same old, and then we can't. Again, the cycle is going to continue. Police oppression, brutality, shootings. We see it all the time. Then we protest. Nothing happens. I mean, it's just the same old cycle, and all of that is trauma. All that has an impact. It gets passed down. We tell the same stories to our kids about what to look out for. Don't say this. It's just a non-stop or non-ending cycle that if we don't do anything for whatever cost it takes, we're going to end up repeating it. The main thing you brought up before was about emotional intelligence. I mean, the empowering perspective that has on an individual when they can recognize, oh, hold on, I'm in a certain space. Or I'm in a certain space that I can't handle. I'm not equipped to. Let me go seek help. I mean, that intelligence right there, and have the resources that are available. You know, when y'all talked about, you know, is basically, is the cost worth it? Is it too great or whatnot? You know, the way I think about it is that it comes down to priorities and value. And so if you look at what you spend money on, what you hold as a priority, maybe mental health, emotional intelligence is not at the top of that list or near the top. And so what we do is we spend money where we see value. And so if we're valuing going to sports games and valuing going to the mall and putting this type of car together and all this other stuff, I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, you ride down the street and people got different rims on this and all that. And it is what it is. But at the same time, if you've got that amount of money to do certain things within your household, then please make that some smaller percentage of the perspective of money being put towards mental health. Because like I said, I just don't think that we're having these conversations. But if we are, then we got to put it at the top of the list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you, Black. Thank you so much for an amazing show tonight. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for your input. Thank you for all our viewers that have stuck with us for the last 2 hours. We really appreciate our tribe. And have definitely they've definitely jumped on the bandwagon. And listen, this show wouldn't be what it is without you all supporting us. If you're here for your first time, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Listen, we are just getting started. I know we're 36 episodes in, but man, we got thousands more to go. We've got a lot of things we're going to talk about, a lot of people to reach, and a lot of good information to share. Listen, we love you all, and we're going to get ready to wrap everything up. And of course, I'll end with my little piece. I'm going to say my Easter speech and get up out of here. But tonight I want to talk about something that really pushed me, and I hope it blesses y'all. It says, sometimes we're tested, not to show our weaknesses, but to discover our strengths. I'll say that again. Sometimes we're tested not to show our weaknesses, but to discover our strengths. We have to understand that life has many ways of testing us. It has many ways of testing our personal will, either by nothing happening to us at all, or by having everything happen all at once. You have to understand at the end of the day that your life means more than what you think, because trials come to make us strong and to prepare us for the next level of God's plan for our life. Not cause us to give up on our destiny, not cause us to throw in the towel, but trials come to make us strong and to prepare us for the next level of the plan that the Most High has for us. So we have to remember, at the end of the day, no matter what comes our way, God is not surprised. Your challenge was not sent to defeat you. It was sent to increase you. So let me remind you, sometimes we're tested, not to show our weaknesses, but to really discover our true strengths. For the rest of your days, for the rest of your life, remember, they didn't come to kill you. They came to build you. We love you. We'll see you next week for another banging show with some wonderful people. We love y'all. Peace, love, and light. See you next Tuesday. Blessings.